In this video, I will be showing you how to use stiff slabs to construct a sculpture. So this is good if you're doing something that is square or rectangular, even if it was like a pyramid or triangular. So what I did is I rolled out my slab a few hours ago, and so this is stiff, right? It's not holding its shape, right? It's not bending, but it's still very damp to the touch, and so I'm still going to be able to slip and squirt and attach pieces together, but they're not going to be folding. It's almost like constructing something out of cardboard versus clay because I've allowed this to stiffen up. So what I plan to make today is a camera, and before you would start cutting into your clay, you need to make a template. And so I decided I want my camera to be I think it's 3 inches by 4 inches, and then the sides are 1.5 inches. And so I would need, of course, 2 sides, right, here and here, a front and a back, and then a top. And it's going to be setting flat, but I'm still going to create a bottom for it. That way, if someone were to pick it up and look underneath of it, it would really be a whole thing. So a front and a back, 2 sides, and a top and a bottom. So that is what I'm going to do now. So I will lay this down on my clay, and I am going to simply cut into my clay. I would use a fettling knife if I had one. When we are in school, we will have a little wooden stick that we'll be able to use. Unfortunately, I do not have one of those here, so kind of using a makeshift tool of a mechanical pencil. Oops. And I'm first just tracing those basic outlines, and then I'm actually going to put a ruler on those lines because that will keep me, the paper would move, the ruler will keep me in a nice straight line, something I can press against. And I'm also trying to press the whole way down to the paper because I don't have a traditional tool. It's taking me more than one try. And depending on how stiff your clay has gotten, it might take more than one try as well. Alright, so I've cut all my pieces out. I have a front and a back, right? They line up, they're the same. Now would be a good time to trim those if they were not the same. Bottom and a top on my 2 sides. Okay, so I am going to start with the bottom. It may end up being the top. That's whichever one looks better is going to be the top. And I'm going to go ahead and put a side on. And so what I need to do is, of course, slip and score the same as I would any other time that I was working with clay. So this is a little bit messy. So I am getting in there, and my clay is a little bit, and it's going to attach right on top of here. So not over here, but I'm going to muck up my clay right here as well. Now this clay is breaking a little bit because it's actually almost too dry. And now I'm going to put some water on there, right? So this cup, I have a paintbrush, I have water, And I'm gonna smear this up a little bit. So now I have those two mucked up, really pressing that down into there. And of course I'm trying to make a right angle here, right? So that this ends up making a closed rectangle. So we're really smearing those in together. And with some soft clay, really kind of make sure this sticks. I'm just gonna get a little tiny bit of soft clay and roll a coil in my palms. So this is fresh clay, right? It has not been rolled out. It's not dried yet. And so this will help to reinforce that on the inside. And I'm really smearing it, sorry, I'm covering up what I'm doing, smearing it into the bottom wall and then this side wall. Again, this will strengthen that joint and mostly help it from cracking back apart or coming apart, period. I'm not going to jump over here, well, I shouldn't say I'm not going to. I'm going to go with an adjoining side. So I'll go ahead and put the side on. And this is going to get a little bit awkward over here, but I will worry about that when I get to it and show you how we fix that if the same thing happens to you. Okay, so you can see where these next two are going to join. Again, I have to muck up my clay where they're going to come together, so I'm scoring it, right, making marks in it. You can crisscross the marks if you want. And then this is attaching inside this wall. So I need to support it with my hand. Oh, it's going to look awkward because I'm using my left hand and I'm right-handed, but this is just so you can see what I'm doing so I don't cover it up. Mucking that up again, supporting it with my other hand, using a sponge or a brush to add some water to these 2 points. And then I also, now this one's not just joining here, but it's also joining on the bottom. So I need to also, right, if you don't think about these things, how many surfaces are really coming together each time, then you're going to have sides that aren't actually joined well or maybe not even joined at all. So getting in there and mucking up the bottom. I mucked up that. Water. Water. Keeping those edges nice and straight. And I'm just using my fingers right now to smooth the goo, the slip that has come out. And I'm going to do the same thing with the coil that I did right there for the bottom and the side. All right, so now I'm going to add this last side, right? And the more pieces I get on there, it gets a bit more difficult because now it's a matter of did everything get cut perfectly, and it didn't. You can see there's this gap at the bottom. I could leave the gap at the top, but the top's really looking pretty good so far, and so I want to keep the top as neat as possible, and I'll kind of make my patchwork at the bottom. Show you how I could fix these things, right? This indents a little bit, and this obviously is missing a whole piece. So I'm going to fix that with coils. this coil's about the right size. Might need to make a little bit bigger one, but I'm going to start with this. And again, this is a soft piece of clay that I have that I'm adding to, not a stiff piece. So that covers that side pretty nicely. And again, a little more water because it's soft, super soft clay. You don't need to score it, right? It's just a small coil. It's already very moist. Putting it on dry clay. And so just patching now with my wet clay in any of those areas that weren't great. Now this is still not going to be my favorite side probably. It's going to be the bottom. But it's much better than it was, right? So that's the side where the whole bottom was pretty much missing. That my lens, I didn't want it to be hollow, right? I didn't want to be able to see the whole way through to the box, so I went ahead and essentially added a bottom, right? So I laid my sphere down flat on the piece of paper and rolled out another soft slab, put this sphere, right? The circle, not a sphere, on top of that slab, and then just cut around it and slip and squirt it. And then I just used the end of my paintbrush actually to go around and gently kind of poke those little dots in so that it looked like the lens is back a little bit further than this traditional black casing that would be holding the lens. And all right, and I'm just going to let this stiffen up a tiny bit more, and then I'll be attaching it, and my camera will be ready to start drying and eventually be fired in the kiln, bisque fired, and then either glazed and glaze fired, or painted and shellacked.